Hey there, friends! Today we've got a special episode for those who want to learn about the hottest games of 2025 that have already dropped. And honestly, guys, I gotta admit, it wasn't easy picking the best of the best because right now in the gaming industry, there's like this creative stagnation going on. Not that many truly worthy new releases. But I tried my best and gathered games for you that really stand out from the rest. Won't drag this out, so enjoy watching. Hollow Knight Silksong. And let's start with the new release that literally crashed Steam servers the moment it dropped. The game I'm playing right now and with which I went through all the stages, from anger to acceptance to, well, resignation. At the same time, I still haven't finished the game yet, so for now this will be a mini review of my first impressions. I've been running around as this agile little bug for a bit over 10 hours, but I already want to share my thoughts. Hope none of you guys were expecting something super extraordinary or radically different. This is just good old Hollow Knight. Only better, bigger, and with slightly changed mechanics. Combat, for example, became more diverse if you compare it especially to the beginning of the first part, where you walk through these bland corridors with absolutely no abilities for like an hour and a half to 2 hours. Here it's interesting to play right from the start. Well, with allowances for growth, naturally, everything builds up. The further you go, the more and more interesting it gets. From the radical changes, and I saw that many people were upset about this, they removed the downward nail strike. Now instead of it, you have to strike diagonally, which feels pretty awkward at first. But spoiler alert, during the playthrough, there'll be an option to return the familiar controls from the first part. Though the new one, in my opinion, adds more interest and feeling of novelty. Although those bomb puzzles in the ant caves, I passed those with the old downward strike method. Also, I wouldn't say that Hornet became much faster than the Pale Knight. At most, she's a tad more agile. You especially feel this at the beginning. Locations change faster than in the first game, at least according to my subjective feelings. The scenery is diverse, everything's like in the first game, and I really liked how the familiar things from the first game are done slightly differently now. For example, to unlock fast travel, you need to defeat a boss, not just pay for it. Of course, the enemy is pretty harmless, but still, it's unusual. In short, guys, if you were missing that good old Hollow Knight, then welcome to the table, as they say. Right now, the servers have recovered after the release and the influx of players, and I think it's the perfect time to jump into Silksong. So as soon as I finish this video, I'm gonna go play it some more. Wish me luck and strong nerves. Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Here's another example of how indie studios are just tearing up the gaming market right now, releasing games that are head and shoulders above heavily promoted AAA titles. 33 employees who escaped from Ubisoft made a game that Ubisoft never even dreamed of. No, don't get me wrong, I'm not putting down the people working at Ubisoft. Quite the opposite, actually. This proves, through such a small team that left, that there are many talented people there, but they're like birds in a cage, you know? The management prevents them from opening up, flying, and starting to create. Management that only cares about investors and profit. The problem with big corporations is their completely deaf desire of leadership to hear us. Regular gamers and all this in favor of shareholders and chasing big profits, of course. What do I want to tell you about this game? This is, it's hard to even call it a regular game. This is literally a work of art, whose calling is to give us players pleasure. Pleasure literally from everything, from gorgeous graphics and normal optimization, and this despite Unreal Engine 5. Well, learn from this, creators of AAA games. Pleasure from beautiful and living characters that you simply can't help but empathize with, from enchanting classical music, and from a frightening yet simultaneously mesmerizing world. And the plot, guys? This is the pinnacle of creativity. It's even hard to describe in words. At first, it seems like everything here is, the drunken rambling of a French sailor who fell asleep in a coastal bar. But then when I got hit by a plot twist at the end of the first chapter, and then again at the end of the second, you start thinking about the meaning of existence. And then you reach the ending, or rather, endings. You sit there for like 5 minutes with an empty stare just looking at the monitor, trying to comprehend all the depth of these depths. I want to thank the developers from the bottom of my heart. You didn't just make a game, you created real art, however loud that may sound. It shows and you can feel it. Thank you for the atmosphere, for the honesty, for putting your soul into this game. Friends, this is one of those games after which you're no longer the same person you were before. Play this game, and then you'll understand what I was talking about here. Tainted Grail, The Fall of Avalon. This game is, from the category of hidden gems. I'm sure many of you haven't even heard of this game, and it passed by you unnoticed. But this is a wonderful RPG in the spirit of good old games. It's a mix of Skyrim, Gothic, Fable, Dark Messiah, and so on. Like a good old RPG game that we remember with warmth in our hearts. For me, this game became a brilliant discovery of 2025, and without exaggeration, possibly even the Game of the Year. The game not only absorbed all the best that we know from other action RPGs, but it's also very distinctive, with very interesting lore and plot. Apart from, yes, the weak technical condition, it'll be very hard to find flaws in it. Perhaps only the third act turned out extremely weak. There, up to a certain point, you completely forget that the game is somehow connected to Arthurian legend, because quests begin where you need to help different tribes. And in general, the third act is somehow as if it's not from this game at all. Well, it's understandable. In general, few games exist where the third act holds the bar as well as the previous act. But still, I wanted to note this for you. Besides, it pays off its $20 price and the time spent already in the first act, and in the second, you're already thinking about how to donate all your money to the developers just so they don't stop with this part of the game. In general, guys, the game is magnificent. I didn't believe that in our time you could birth such a project from nothing that would be head and shoulders better than everything that's come out in the last 5 years. Music, design, setting, plot, characters, dialogues, and quests, everything here is top-notch. From the minuses, I repeat, weak third act and weak technical condition, and possibly controversial moments in location design. But again, that's all a matter of taste. The verdict on the game is this. If you're a fan of action RPGs, especially in the style of Elder Scrolls, Dark Messiah, or Gothic, you absolutely cannot skip this game. You'll get a kick out of it. That's 200% guaranteed, especially since it costs $20. The Altars. At first glance, The Altars is classic survival. Build a base, manage resources, fix equipment, monitor filters and food supplies. But behind this technical facade, guys, hides a completely different story. The game quickly makes it clear, you have to survive not just on an alien planet, but in your own thoughts, doubts, and regrets. We play as John Dolsky, the only survivor from the crew of what seemed like a failed expedition. He remained alone on an aggressive planet, under the scorching light of a deadly dangerous sun, with growing resource deficit and mounting despair. After contacting Earth, Jan receives an offer to use a unique local resource called Rapidium for a biotechnical experiment. First, he clones some sheep, and then something more complex. With the help of a quantum computer, Jan gets the ability to create altars, alternative versions of himself. But each is born from a moment in the past where he made a different decision. For example, dropped out of university, joined the army, stayed with his father, didn't leave his girlfriend, pursued science, and so on. And these decisions form completely different Jans with different characters, psychological traumas, abilities, and now they're all with you on one base. And you'll have to somehow manage them all and make sure they all get along with each other. Mechanically, this is an excellent mix of genres, but also very unusual. But the main thing in this game isn't base building, resource gathering, and other mechanics, but conversations with your altars, that is, with yourself. They're not always happy to appear. Some get angry, others are afraid, still others feel like they're just being used. But gradually, through trust, support, sometimes even conflicts, real understanding is born between them. The game poses very personal questions. What if you had taken a different path? What if you hadn't made that mistake? What if you were, different? And you'll have many such questions appearing. But what makes the altars special is that you're not just creating useful clones for survival, you're accepting yourself. With all those wrong decisions, weaknesses, and mistakes. After all, who else knows you as well as an alternative version of yourself? In general, friends, this is another masterpiece from 11-Bit Studios. If you previously highly rated games like This War of Mine or Frostpunk, then The Altars simply cannot not appeal to you, so give it a try. The Precinct. This is a real gem for lovers of retro atmosphere and police adventures. The game magnificently conveys the spirit of the 80s, starting from the visual style and ending with details in dialogues and character behavior. The graphic design simply amazes with its authenticity. Each location, from gloomy city streets to police station offices, is crafted with love for the smallest details. Especially impressive, is how the developers managed to convey the characteristic 80s lighting and textures. The gameplay offers an interesting mix of crime investigation, precinct management, and interaction with colleagues. You don't just follow a linear plot, you have to make important decisions that affect the story's development. The plot develops gradually, revealing interesting stories both about the criminal world and about the lives of ordinary police officers in general. The dialogues here are lively and natural. Characters have their unique traits and motives. Especially impressive is how the game shows the dark sides of police work, but of course without sliding into excessive realism. The difficulty in the game increases gradually, giving time to get used to the mechanics. At the same time, even experienced players will have plenty to do here. Multiple side missions, various ways to solve cases, and the ability to develop your character. The verdict on the game is this: The Precinct isn't just another indie game. It's a real work of art that successfully combines nostalgic aesthetics with quality gameplay. Guys, if you appreciate 80s atmosphere and love games about police and detectives, then this game is a must-have for you. It can draw you in for dozens of hours and give you an unforgettable impression of immersion in the world of retro detective work. Considering that this is a AA project, my rating is 9 out of 10. Titan Quest 2. Well, how could I pass by this game? I've been a fan of Titan Quest since way back in 2006 when I was still a little school kid. This is, one of those games that stays in your memory for years. So yes, I bought it right after release. But regarding the game itself, the second part is the same good old Titan Quest. You walk along the road, kill packs of mobs, collect new armor and weapons, level up. Yes, maybe the graphics aren't outstanding, but they don't irritate. They're generally pleasant, but I didn't see any optimization problems. Everything works just perfectly in early access. What can I say briefly? The game is definitely worth getting for those who got a kick out of the first part back in the day. Nostalgia, guys, is definitely guaranteed for you. I played through the game with great pleasure. Well, rather, just the content that's currently present. There really is little of it. And now I understand why they're selling the game so cheaply for now, and even now with a discount. They're doing everything right. Although I did notice bugs in the game, this still isn't a full game yet. Rather, it's a long demo. Yes, it was engaging, but only 10 hours, although I played slowly and without rushing, so I'll be waiting for new content to arrive. This is already official information from the developers themselves. So guys, if you're a fan of the first part, definitely get it while the game is selling at a reduced price. Eriksholm, The Stolen Dream. What immediately attracts you to this game is its gorgeous art design. It's just something else, guys. Examining this city, listening to conversations of its inhabitants, the hero's comments about what's happening. Well, in general, the setting here is excellent. It somehow reminded me of Dishonored, but not so gloomy. The plot is good and quite soulful. Immediately there appears, some secret desire to understand what's happening here. Although I would have liked a more logical finale in the spirit of the rest of the story. Though this works too, considering that this is a AA project and the first game from the studio. The characters here are also extremely pleasant and well developed, as much as possible given the game's small runtime. Excellent cinematic cutscenes that perfectly immerse you in the story. And this is in an isometric game of obviously small budget, but yes, there were too few of them. Just a few pieces for the whole game. More of them, and it would have been wonderful in general. The gameplay is real-time, not turn-based as often happens in similar games. And this makes me very happy since I don't like turn-based games, no matter how much I try. Well, except for classics like Heroes 3. Story-wise, yes, they can also be excellent. Same with Baldur's Gate 3 as an example, simply a legendary game that I've already completed twice. Well, this is probably more of an exception to the rule in my case, but there's no special tactical depth and variation in playthrough here. Obviously, guys, unlike many other similar games, gameplay here is needed not for the sake of gameplay depth itself, but for advancing through the story. That is, this is purely a story game, but it handles this excellently. The only thing is, at the finale there was, a feeling that it was too little, and I wanted at least half more of what had already been completed. Well, if the game turns out successful and the developers want to release a sequel, which I really hope for, then I'd like somewhat deeper and more diverse gameplay, more full cinematic cutscenes, and of course, more game runtime. Well, a solid foundation for a sequel definitely already exists here. Mafia: The Old Country. This is the return of Mafia in its best traditions. The developers decided to return to the roots and release a game in the spirit of the first and second parts. About the plot. The game keeps you in suspense from beginning to end, telling a gripping and atmospheric story of the early 20th century in Sicily. The story of the birth of the real Italian Mafia. This plot can boldly be put on the same level as the stories of the first two Mafia parts. Before us is another masterpiece of the series. I completed the game in 15 hours and was satisfied as an elephant. But yes, it might seem short to some, and I don't argue. I would have liked to play it longer, and of course it's very unfortunate that there are no side missions. Unlike previous parts, here appeared interesting innovations. For example, horses as a new type of transport, knife duels, and an updated combat system. They also added talismans that give various buffs. Honestly, I didn't use them at all. In general, the game feels casual. Even on high difficulty level, it wasn't hard to complete. But for someone, this will even be a plus. Those who value their time. The world here is large, although yes, not completely open. Beautiful Italian nature, picturesque forests, mountains, rivers, lakes, and several small towns create the atmosphere of real Sicily. Throughout the entire playthrough, I didn't encounter a single bug. There were no optimization problems. I played on medium-high settings and everything worked stably. The graphics are very beautiful, although yes guys, don't look for some revolutionary technologies here. The game just looks beautiful. I want to say, as a fan of the series who made a pre-order and eagerly awaited the game, I boldly recommend it to all Mafia fans. You definitely won't be disappointed, especially if you're a fan of the first two parts. The game came out good. Gripping plot, atmospheric world, and pleasant gameplay. Yes, it's short. I repeat, I completed it in 15 hours, but I completed it in one breath and got huge pleasure, so I recommend it. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. I completed this game, guys, from beginning to end, including absolutely all additional quests. If I speak laconically, then Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is the standard of modern RPG games. In my opinion, absolutely everything is perfect in it. Let's start with what first catches the eye. Well, of course, it's the graphics, guys. The graphics here are excellent, and the optimization, I was, pleasantly surprised by it. I played in 2K resolution on high graphics settings, and the game gave me a stable 90+ FPS. I had an RTX 4060 at the time of playthrough. If you remember, the first part on release unfortunately couldn't boast of this. The gameplay here is maximally diverse and worked out in all details. You definitely won't be bored in this game ever. And you should understand that the game is distinctive, not casual, with emphasis on historical accuracy and realism. The minigames are also pleasing. Same forging, alchemy, pickpocketing. The combat system here isn't just clicking the left mouse button, but a whole thought-out mechanic with combos, dodges, with understanding of what's happening in general. The main plot is gripping, intriguing, tense, and interesting. Being a continuation of the first part, it logically finishes the story. However, it still leaves questions and food for thought about how Henry's fate and other characters' fates will develop further. What they'll do after the game ends. But maybe we'll see all this in the third part. Additional quests are a separate narrative. I don't remember a single boring or tedious quest. Even some short side quest is a separate story. This reminds me, of Witcher 3. There too, the additional quests were no worse than the main quest. And, guys, I think that this is exactly what makes up the recipe for success of a perfect game. Good main plot plus excellent secondary quests. That's already a guarantee of success for an RPG. In general, friends, this game is a bright example of how modern games should look. Like the first part, I fell madly in love with Kingdom Come 2. It was an amazing journey through medieval Bohemia, but still, it has one big minus. The game has the property of ending, which makes you simply sad. In my humble and subjective opinion, I would give this game the highest rating, namely 10 out of 10. Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. This is the second biggest gaming remake after Oblivion Remaster in 2025. We're offered a modern Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater on Unreal Engine 5 with modern graphics, and this is, an excellent reason for fans to see the game in a new look, as well as to get acquainted with it for those who didn't play the original part. Everyone familiar with Hideo Kojima's games knows that his games have such a feature as cinematography. Now, in 2025, cinematography is standard in the gaming industry. Kojima began bringing this into his games long before it became standard, and Metal Gear Solid 3 is no exception. From the first minutes of the game, you feel directorial staging in the signature style. Friends, this looks originally interesting even in 2025. Despite the fact that the game is already more than 20 years old, the story is quite interesting and engaging. Characters are quite colorful and memorable. Here, there are masses of references to cinema, various philosophy, and many other things that were obviously created by a person with huge knowledge and broad worldview. After all, Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater can interest and surprise with something, it seems to me, everyone. In gameplay terms, Snake Eater by modern standards I would call interesting, but compared to Metal Gear Solid 5, much more limited and outdated. Obviously, the remake was made to maximally recreate the original game with all that follows. Many gameplay mechanics might seem quite specific to you, but in general, this is a good representative of the stealth action genre. Even if, yes, a bit outdated by the standards of year 25, but in pursuit of preserving maximum authenticity and faithfulness to Snake Eater of 2004 standard, everything was recreated and preserved in the smallest details, so this isn't a complaint at all. What can I say about Snake Eater in general? This remake, friends, is an excellent reason for nostalgia for series fans, as well as an excellent reason to get acquainted with Metal Gear Solid 3 for those who were previously unfamiliar with it. For example, like me. The game is very interesting and engaging, even despite the fact that this is a pure remake where no global gameplay changes were made, and this is all the same old Snake Eater but in the 25 version. Some gameplay obsolescence, yes, will be noticeable, but this won't spoil your experience with the game. The plot, cinematography, and other game content haven't aged a bit, and are perceived magnificently in year 25. And regardless of whether you're a series fan or not, familiar with the game or not, I strongly recommend the game for acquaintance. Oh yes, and I almost forgot. Guys, thank you so much to those who watched this video to the end, who liked and subscribed. Huge thanks to you. Take care of yourselves, stay healthy, and don't forget about your loved ones. Bye-bye.